I got the recording started and
Oh shoot. Okay.
promos out. We're good to go.
Let me open up the stream, Dan. That is not what I wanted to stream. There we go. Ugh. Hello.
You're probably the most modded that we've seen so far, but I think that burst between
Oh,
the Thomas the Tank Engine round start and May having Totsugeki on every line, I think still might have you beat.
you just reminded me. I should probably turn this off. Hang on. I should probably turn that off, huh?
Yeah.
Let me uh let me fix that.
We ended off on a high. Fucking Snake Eyes winning. Oh shit.
Snake
That was so
Eyes.
good.
This is
Potemkin one
this is the
major.
perfect it's the perfect segue. You just learned that you gotta respect the low tiers, and now you're here for the Sin Kiske Metafy.
No, it's not a.
Exactly. You know,
Pod is not a low tier. Kel's been brainwashing us this entire time.
it's Attack of the Low Tiers. We're here. We're ready.
All the pot players have been conspiring together just to get Snake Eyes this win.
Yeah.
They just had to wait for a Texas major where all the pot players could enter.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, the mod should be gone. Reduced to atoms.
What's poppin'?
What's
Hello.
good?
What is
Don't
happening?
mind me just watching.
We're about to have Max run us through the Sin Kiske Metafy.
Ah, I see.
Yes, yes.
Makes sense. Well, I'm not
Let me
going
make
to
sure
combo breaker. I've got no reason to be here.
Hey, listen,
Fair
you can
enough.
still learn. You can still learn.
Amen. Amen.
I could still learn.
Hey man, if I catch you in bracket and I whoop you, I don't want to hear nothing about not knowing the same matchup, right?
True.
You ain't never gonna hear me bitch about it.
That's what I thought.
Or our grandmaster plan is getting Max onto our team, having them show everyone how to fight against Sin, and then kicking all their asses and being like, "Nah, you got no excuse. I already told you. You should have
Oh
been
my
there."
God. That's just the ultimate plan. How you gonna lose with the instruction manual right in front of you?
Yeah,
So
come
true. Oh my god, alright. Man, this feels weird. I don't know how to feel. The grab sound is gone. Anyway.
Alright.
Alright.
You guys have fun.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Yeah, turtle.
Alright. Sin, funny character, funny himbo man, just like me for real. By the end of this, hopefully, you might be able to do something funny like this. Fuck, I was really hoping I wouldn't. Second time's the charm. Let's go. Alright, anyway. After this, you might be able to do something like that. Okay. I'm gonna quickly run down his normals, and then I'm gonna move into his specials because his normals have amazing synergy with his specials. But I want to make sure you know the basis of them. Okay, so starting with B buttons, this is a really fast, really good. I would say really good. It's decent anti-air. It's really only situational in certain matchups. For example, Bridget run up 5p is really good because 6p can be a little wonky sometimes. It does not have a good hitbox lower than the pole. So if 5p is a good anti-air option, if 6p is not really working. Speaking of 6p, despite it having a weird hitbox, it is really good. There's not really much to say about it. It's just, solid 6p. His H buttons, you don't really want to whiff in neutral. I believe both of them are like minus 22 and minus like 16 recovery or something like that. Not minus, but you know what I mean. So you do not want to be pressing the H normals in neutral just to like hit them. You want to do them in block strings, something like that. Well, other than 6H, you could get away with hitting 6H. I don't really do this because there's not really a chance to unless it's in a combo. Slash normals. Slash normals are weird. His close slash, honestly, really good. It's not the greatest anti-air like a lot of close slashes are because of its weird hitbox up top, which is a common problem with Sin's buttons, by the way. But it's still really good. And then this button I see being underutilized so much because it's, don't get me wrong, this is just a better version of this, but this still has good RPS, and it's a little longer, has a little longer range than 2S does. So if you want to do, well, I'll show you in a minute, something spicy with it. And then this is, you know, fast recovery, good poke, good whiff punish. It goes into beak, unless you get 6 speed like that. I forgot he's on that, but pretty solid, pretty solid. K buttons. This one's really just a combo tool. It's a good poke, but 2K is just better because you can just it's a lot easier to like run up 2K and then you can get like 6K as a frame trap. You can do like, unless they're on 6P, but still pretty solid. 6K by the way, +3, amazing frame trap. You can't really do anything about it. It's just, close slash 6K or even close or six the other way around, both really good. You can honestly do whatever if you press this button and it's blocked. That's jump normals. All of them are good. You should use every one. This JH is really good for creating space. So like for example, if you want to bait out a 6P, you can do this to create space into a special. Like you can do that into beak or this into elk just to kind of create space and get in. JS is it's also both JS and JH are both good jump ins for different reasons. JS is a good jump in for punishes. So like let's say Kai does like a fireball. You can just jump in over it. It's really fast, hits really low. It's solid. And then if you want to kind of keep that space, that's what JH is for. Like if you want to avoid getting grabbed, you can JH and grab will just be out of your range. Actually, I can just show you real quick. Where is it? So like if you're in the corner and you're kind of waiting to get in, you can go in 2K 2D or do whatever. It's really nice to create space to kind of catch whiffs. That's kind of, you'll see, is kind of what you want to go for as in is catching whiffs. But anyway, so far any questions about normals?
No, you're killing it.
Look good.
Okay. All right. Anyway, for specials, this button. It's really weird. It's really bad, but also really good. It just depends on how you use it. 2S into beak is one of the best things you could do in pressure. It just depends on how you use it, like I said. So for example, if someone's expecting you to do beak, you can just wait and then get in. Or even if you want to just kind of keep where you are on the screen. I'm throwing right now, but if you want to kind of keep where you are on the screen, you can just do it and then wait and then kind of, And then far slash, the reason I say this is underrated is because this is a good way to get in. Unlike 2S, you can't really beak into this because again 6P, and then you really don't have any other option. But for example, if they know you're gonna go for, or if they think you're gonna go for beak, you can do far slash into elk to get in, and then kind of, do something like that just to keep or put them into the corner. Or if they're expecting you to elk, let's say they respond like this, you can then hoof them and catch their low. Or you can just straight up beak and also catch their low. So this is a very good RPS tool for getting in. You'll never know how this is going to get in, but if I press this button personally, I'm getting in somehow. You got to guess which way I'm going in though. And then as for hoof itself, it's a little less reactable than just doing like the 5D or whatever, but it has really good mix-up potential because if I do like close slash, and they think I'm going to elk in, you hoof. Or you can just straight up hoof. It's an overhead. You know what overheads do. Really good. Let me.
And hoof is, if I'm not mistaken, always DPable and like sometimes like 2Pable also.
Yes. Yeah, that is Hoof's main weakness. If you're ready for Hoof, you can 2P it, you can 5, well, more often than not, you're going to want to 5P it over 2P, but you can just DP it, 5P it. Nago can 5K it unless you do close slash. And so it can be easily punishable if you're expecting it, but that's where the RPS comes in, because, you know, if I'm expecting you to punish this, I can go in for Elk instead, unless you're one of the weird characters that can 2P it, then it kind of gets really hard, but in a situation like that, you know, that's where the RPS comes in. Also, it is -8 on hit, which is kind of weird. I don't know why you would make this. Let me take you off of block. I don't know why you would make this -8 on hit. Oh, you're not doing anything on recovery. Hang on. So like, I can do this, and then I can't really do anything because I'm minus. That's why you don't really want to do this attack without meter or stamina. However, again, if you're kind of playing the long game, which you should be on Sin, you can kind of get away with doing Hoof and then not worry about getting punished because they're too busy kind of waiting for you to follow up, or, you know, they're expecting something. If they're expecting something, then you can get away with Hoof being -8. But it's still very risky. And then Elk, again, another underutilized move in my opinion. You don't really want to just use Elk in neutral because you can grab it really easy. You can snuff it with a low really easy because it's not really active until the end. Like that whole startup process, as you can see, it doesn't hit. So that's why it's easy to grab or react to if you're ready for it. But also the reason I say it's underrated is because, like I showed you, if you do JH to like snuff a high button, then you can sneak in the Elk to get in. So like, for example, let's say, let me put you back on 6P and then block. I curse you being small. See, I can kind of sneak in and then kind of run my game. That's how I think you should be using Elk. Kind of just sneak it into places. You don't want to just do it. But other than that, that basically covers specials. There Another thing you can do is you can delay them to get things like this. Really good damage if you catch somebody mashing on these buttons, and same thing with Beak. It's just you press on these buttons and you just die. You just straight up die if you're delaying, but the problem with delaying is you can get DP'd. Let me set Kai to DP and show you. Where is your DP, good sir? There you are. So if I'm in the corner, I'm kind of, you know, doing my thing, and then I said delay, I get DP'd. You can, if you just mash the button, you won't get DP'd. So it just depends on who you're fighting and their place and like how they react to you. That's kind of what I'm getting at with Sin, is you want to play around your opponent. You want to see how they react to you doing certain things and then base your game plan off of that. You don't really want to have one going in until you know what your opponent does. That's why round starts, I normally do this and then like maybe Elk, or like if I'm fighting a Nago, I'll do this. If they don't DP, by the way. I'll do this into Beak to kind of like catch maybe Beyblade, or maybe 5K if they do a round start, you know. You kind of want to play around round start until you kind of see how your opponent plays. Any questions so far? Okay.
Mm-mm.
I guess now I'll go into basic B&Bs. The one that will most commonly happen is this one. It's just the one you should know. Really good damage. I got that? That's wild. Really good damage. Hard, you get, you know, you just should know this. Will happen more often than not because you want to close slash a lot. Because especially when you're low on stamina, you wanna go for strike throw, close slash, or like do hello. You wanna do, no, you're not blocking. you know, kind of fish. Oh, I'm throwing. Okay, I'm not good at grabbing that today. Hello? There we go. Yeah, you kind of want to fish for grabs with close slash when you don't have a lot of meter. Stamina, I should say. So when you don't have a lot of stamina, like I said, try and do 2S into nothing or 2S into beak if you have an idea of what they're gonna do. So for example, if Kai's 6Ping, don't do that. You know, free wall bake, 200 damage, a hard knockdown, you can run your game, maybe even get another wall break if you have the meter, you know. You really, really want to play around whiffing or whiff punishing and counter hits. That's kind of where Sin thrives because he can do really high damage things at any moment in the match, and that's what makes him good. In terms of counterplay, like Pariah brought up, you can normally, if I'm not doing close slash, if I do like 2K into this, you can 6P hoof, you can DP hoof. Elk is really reactable. You can, if they don't react to the initial elk hunt, you can follow up the grab. It's just kind of difficult. Let me see if I can do it. Yeah, see, it's kind of
It's that 1 frame manual delay.
yeah. It's that really slight 1 frame delay that you can get if you know how. I don't normally go for that because it is kind of hard, like as you see it, but it is possible. And then again, you get to, you know, run your game with a combo.
Uh, where would you recommend? So, like with the combos and B&Bs kind of in mind, where do you generally burst bait, and like where do you see people like really catching you out? Are there particular spots that are like really safe to burst and stuff like that?
Honestly, no. It's really hard for Sin to burst. You really just if you see any of his H buttons, just burst. They're frame traps. I can't cancel them unless I have meter. But I normally if I'm burst baiting, I burst bait with this. So for example, if I let me have to actually I have a clip I have a clip showing that really well, but I'll just show it here. After recovery, where is burst? So I'll kind of with 6H, or not 6H, 6K, and then burst bait, and then run a combo that way. That's something I really like to do because people think the low recovery or the high recovery on 6K will allow them to get out. I wish he wasn't gold bursting, but I have a clip that I can show you that better demonstrates it. But that's kind of where I like to burst bait is if I'm using 6K because you can't really do it in combos unless you do like. Let me get you off the block. You can do something like that to create space, but it's not really burst safe per se. You can probably burst bait off of 5K, but it's really not worth burst baiting to be honest, because you can just get right back in after the recovery. Like for example, if they burst you and then usually they'll go for like a panic button like Kai will far slash, I can just go under his far slash and I'm right back in. So it doesn't really matter if you get sent off of you, he can just come back if you don't know how to handle it. So it's better to just run your game.
Okay. In I know that I had seen at some point that Sin has a similar burst bait to the Eno stroke the big tree one, where he goes under you with elk hunt or like the dash or something.
Yeah. I'm
Is there
not
like a
really
setup for
sure
that,
what.
or
Yeah, I'm not really sure. Like I've done it before, but on accident. I'm not really sure how to set it up. It just happens sometimes, but it
I
is
feel the same?
possible.
Okay.
I should probably lab that out because it is really nice. I'm pretty sure it will only really happen off of like counter hit, close slash, because you do kind of go high.
Okay.
So I can do like that, and that might burst bait it.
Okay.
But for the most part, I don't think that happens too often. It's not as easy as he knows. Um, anything else?
Oh, can you? How does Sin's food meter thingy work?
Oh, food. Literally, he just gets a random buff that ranges from, like, for example, I think it's like a lobster. It gives you a certain amount of attack based on like the like effects. You can get from like 2 to 6 attack or like 2 to 6% movement speed. It's bad. There's no reason to use food.
Oh,
The
sorry, I
only
meant
time.
the bar
The
meter.
stamina
Oh, the
stamina
bar.
meter.
Oh,
Stamina
you mean the
bar.
bar.
Yeah. My bad.
No, okay. I thought you meant this. I was like, yeah, no, this.
I've heard
Don't do
everybody
this.
say that the
If
eating
Yeah.
is pretty much useless.
The
If
only
a
thing you can use this for is a wall slump that can never happen almost. That is it. But what was the question about the stamina?
Yeah, like how does it work? What is it like? What options do you
Um,
have with it? What do you do when it runs out?
well, essentially that's y your stamina is essentially how you do follow-ups, how you do dash cancels, how you do all that. If you don't have any, Sin has a really hard time running his game plan. That's why I said when you have no meter or no stam, you want to just kind of poke with 2S to see how your opponent responds while you wait for stamina to come back. Because there's no way to get it back manually, you have to wait. And this is a thing that happens with all characters with meters, but Sin suffers from it the most. When you're attacking somebody, the game itself slows down. So Sin's meter will take way longer than it actually should when you're actually attacking. It's really dumb, but it doesn't really affect anybody other than Sin. Because he one has no way to recover it, and yeah, he really, really relies on it.
and like Sin, when you're out of stamina, you're basically out of options unless you built a bunch of
Yeah,
meter during while you had the stamina, right?
essentially.
So like if you're playing against a Sin that like does a follow up and then dashes right after, they're immediately on 1 bar of meter and their options are super limited.
How do you decide which of your specials you tend to follow up on with meters with bar spend?
It's essentially just knowing the frames. Like, for example, the follow-up on Beak, I believe, is -8. Let me check. No, it's -3, so it's not okay, not as bad, but you basically lose your turn on block unless you're fighting a certain characters, like for example Nago. You basically lose your turn on block if you use Beak follow-up. So I really only fish for Beak follow-up if I'm expecting them to try and punish it, or to just get corner carry. For Elk, you're +8 off of the follow up. So that's the one I use the most. There's no reason why you shouldn't. You just get free plus frames. There's like if you have the stamina and you land an Elk hunt, follow up. There's no reason why you shouldn't, to be honest.
Okay.
It's free plus flames. It's +6 if you decide to dash. And that can lead to some problems, like for example, if you're not careful and you do the elk follow up on block, you usually want to go for like a close slash. It's a frame trap, but sometimes you can get grabbed out of it. I have a tech that prevents that from happening if you do fuck up or if you do mess up the close slash, but it's very situational because it's literally only to beat grab and DP if they're feeling risky. If you would like to show like me to show you it, I can, but
Yeah, I have a question.
good.
So when I matched up against a Sin, um, what's like let's just speak of like May, like I'm a May main. What am I looking for as far as like gaps or things that I can capitalize on?
I haven't fought enough Mays to really know what May could press on me, but the gaps are basically if I hoof, May can probably 5p or maybe even up Dolphin, to be honest, if you are fast enough. Elk, like I said, you can punish it. So if I do like 2S and Elk, if you're ready for it, you can just stuff it with a low. Essentially, if I do any of my specials, that is a gap. It's a really hard to react to gap, but all of his specials off of my normals are gaps.
And what type of distance? I know that Sin has a pretty far reach, but do you know if it's farther than Nago or like Faust or like
Not,
com
not even close. You
okay.
normally I play from round start range until I find a way to get in. Like around this range is where I kind of play using 2S or Beak or whatever until I find a way in. You
So
can
how do
no
you
no go ahead.
deal with those like with like Axels or Nagos or Faust like as Sin? How do you deal with that?
As Sin, you want to close the gap as soon as possible, and against those kind of characters, it's less Syntech and more just you. It's more just having the knowledge of the game. So like I normally will like dash block a ton until I'm like in round start range to fish for buttons. So like for example, if Axel is doing, let's say, what is it, like 2H into the like sickle like thing, I'll normally try and dash block until I get about here because you can actually jump over Axel's like low, like not the grab, but you know how he gets like the thing, like the firebomb at the end of his
Mhm.
sickles, like that move. You can jump over that before that happens and punish him for it. So that's why you want to play around round start range so you can get in on characters like that because your moves have really long reach. Like for example, Elk, it's damn near full screen. If let's say Happy Chaos wants to shoot you, you can just Elk Hunt into him before the shot goes off, and then he can't block obviously because he's in shot. So that's kind of how you play around that. You just want to play around round start and just punish the moves that have long windups.
Okay, okay.
How's your air to air as Sin? Like,
Air to
do you
air,
find you have relatively good air to air, or like
it's a
bike?
mixed
People
bag.
always talk about like bike and having really good air to air, but I don't really
It's
know
a
about
mixed
Sin.
bag with Sin. JK, amazing air to air button. You get decent conversions off of it. So for example, I'll show you here. If someone's like jumping and they go for a button, you can time it right. You can kind of get a combo like that. It's not much damage, but it's really good conversion, and you get a wall break to run your game. JP, it's not as good as JK in my opinion, but it's really good for the faster characters like Milia or Chip if they're coming at you with like Capel, or if Chip's like, you know, just spinning at you. JP is really good for catching them, and also just catching them in the corner. If they like try to jump out, that's where JK comes in because if you can see it has like a really long upwards reach, and since characters like May, Milia, Chip, they jump really high, you want to use JK to like catch them jumping out of the corner since you can't really use JS or JH for that. Those are for JS and JH are better air tears for like not the fast characters. So like Kai is a perfect example. You can whiff punish with JH if they JS or you know stuff like that.
Interesting.
I do have a replay saved if you would like to see like an example of how I play these kind of difficult matchups, like for example,
Yeah.
Nago. Okay, let me go to that. Because Nago, people say, is not a good matchup for Sin, which is kind of true, but not in the way that they're saying it. It's not horrible, is what I'm getting at. And I will kind of try and walk you through why. Let me see if I can find it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here we go. I guess I'll just run over the Monago matchup since we're here. Sin on round start doesn't have a lot of options against Nago, as you can see there. You don't have any way to beat DP, so your best bet is to either walk back or backdash if you know for sure they're gonna DP beat. Because if they like Beyblade, they're gonna catch your backdash because of its recovery. This Nago I was fighting, I've gotten too accustomed to what he likes to do round start, so I assumed he was going for DP. That's why I backdash. And then he plays passive. You shouldn't normally do this against Nagos, especially aggressive ones. They'll just snipe you out of the air. But this one is passive, so I choose to jump in, and I catch their 2S, as you can see, or not 2S, their 5K. You kind of just you just kind of like you just play a waiting game, and once they mess up, you just go in and run your game.
Hmm. Do you have any recommendations for so say you're this Nago, right? And you're in this situation where this Sin is coming at me and they're sitting at 2S range and they just keep spamming 2S at me, right? Should I be like IADing in, or like what do you usually see as people punishing you trying to play that like kind of zoner Sin game plan?
Either 6P or 5H, because if I'm 2Sing, I'm normally fishing for beak, and you can 6P beak, and Naga's 5H specifically, especially at high blood, is really good at whiff punishing, so you kind of want to go for those as Nago, is what I've noticed a lot of Nagos do against me. Or because of Sin's kind of lackluster recovery, you could just wait for the beak and then like Beyblade or just come at me, and I really can't do much, even especially if I have no meter.
So kind of like a block and punish game plan.
Yeah, basically. You basically just want to wait for Sin to burn himself out and then kind of punish his waiting game. That's the best way I can put it.
And 2S is a mid, right?
Yes, 2S is a mid. It's not a
That's
low for some reason.
that's tragic.
That is
That's
very tragic.
That's the saddest
That is
thing in
tragic.
the world.
I did not know that. That's crazy.
Yeah. You see how
Sure
he tried to
doesn't
like
look like one.
yeah. It definitely does not look like one. But yeah, as you can see, I just kind of play a waiting game, and then once I'm in,
Um,
yeah.
I feel like the neutral is a lot of like it's almost similar to Chip or Geo in that way of like playing very neutral heavy with punish kind of game plan.
Yeah, that's the best way to play Sin. I call it like a passive aggressive Sin. You wait to whiff punish, and then once you whiff punish, you're cooking. They really can't do anything once you're in, especially if you know what you're doing. With like 2S and 2K and 2P. Oh, I didn't cover 2P actually. 2P is really good. I should have covered that. 2P is amazing.
Oh yeah.
Something I like to do that I didn't do in that replay is on wall break, I'll run up and like not really hit the opponent, but like I'll kind of whiff 2P to catch DP or wake up super or whatever. Or I'll just straight up run up 2P and then block because they like to like the YRC or the DP. That's what this button's for. Or at least that's what I use it for. I use it to bait things because it's his best it's really fast, it recovers fast, and yeah, that's kind of what I use Choopy for. And obviously, it's a really good mash if you know you could mash in a certain place. It's that kind of button.
Mm-hmm.
So like, let me see if I can give you an example. What is Soul on actually? Hang on. What do you want on recovery? Oh, that's perfect. All right, so we're running in. We're on wall break. Something like that. That's what I like to use 2P for. I would opt for 2K because it goes a little further, but the reason I don't is because well, it is longer and it has a little bit less recovery. If it had less recovery, I would use this over this because it's longer, so you can get them the YRC and block, but you can't really do that with 2K right now, and you'll get caught by DPs more often than you would doing this.
On that note, is there any so I know that Sin's safe jump has I may be working with outdated knowledge, but like his safe jump has a pretty big tail, right? Because he has to do the 5P to frame kill.
Yeah, he has to do. Yeah, so like for example, if I want to safe jump on Soul, I have to do this, and sometimes it might not even work because of that, like you just saw. And in terms, if you're doing it off of wall break,
Mm-hmm.
you have to do like the weird FD cancel to get the safe jump to work.
Okay.
That's why I don't normally do the safe jump. I rather would just, if they have no meter, run in 2S and then hoof, or if they're expecting hoof, I'll elk, stuff like that. That's why I don't really do it. I only really do it in the corner because that's where it's best.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Yeah. And like even though it's simple and easy, like just running up a 2S on wall break, it's still really good because especially if they have no meter and you can kind of just RPS off of that alone. They have to guess what you're gonna do after 2S because either way I'm coming in. You were just knocked down, I'm gonna go in. You just have to guess how I'm going in.
Okay.
I guess actually. I guess on the topic of like knockdowns, I will cover his knockdowns. He has really good things off of knockdown. Um, let me just check quickly. Actually, can this beat? Oh, it can. Okay, fine. Okay. So this off of anywhere but the corner, this is your best bet. Even in the corner, it's really good. If you do grab into elk, it will be even 3 frames, like you just see. You can't really press. You can only really DP. It catches grab. It catches all of that. But I can also just let me put you on volcanic. I can just go in and then do nothing if you DP, and then I get a punish that way. So that is your best bet from mid screen if you get a throw. In the corner, you have so many options. Sin can do just about anything if you get grabbed in the corner. For example, I can do something like that, which is just super jump into JS and then JS again. I can do the safe jump like I showed you earlier. Or I can do my super secret tech, which is the worst of these options, but unless you know how to use it. That's why I don't teach it to people, because it's really, really funky. I guess I'll show it off.
That's just the Sin special, right? Is like
Yeah,
everything is kind of
exactly.
bad, but he's trying to mental stack you into making a greedy choice or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I look. That's why I think Sin is underrated. Because if you have the fundamentals, this character can be crazy. Like this character has great corner carry, great damage, really good mix if you know how to use it. Like this character has it all. What slows him down is his terrible recovery, in my opinion. If his recovery is changed, I think this character will be at least a mid tier. I can okay. Let me show you the mix. What can I put soul on? That isn't on block. Okay. So let's do. Normally they go for a low when I do this. So the way I start it is I'll OTG legit. I'll OTG. Why are you doing that? Don't do that. Anyway, I'll OTG with close slash, and then grab them to do it again, and then I'll start it. Essentially, if I do this, your only way to beat it is DP. But if you don't have a DP, the JS or the JD in, you can't do anything about. It is what comes after you can do something about. So let me put
Because
soul
JD's like
on.
super negative on block, right?
Yeah, but you can cancel it into your specials, which is why I do this. So for example, I can do, see, it catches him on wake up if he does it there. So if I put soul on nothing and then I have him block, if he goes for a low, you normally want to do hoof off of this setup. It gives you the most reward. It has a really good knockdown, and you can kind of just, if I don't screw it up, you can run in and then do something like that. But the safest one is Beak. It's a frame trap and a true string at the same time. It's really funky, but it's super good. You can't really get punished out of it other than like 6p or DP. And then the last one being Elk. If they go for a like 5p, or like let's say Soul is doing where is it? Where is it? Let's say Soul is doing. And actually, I wonder, can you? Hang on. I'm actually not sure if this works, so we're gonna learn this together.
Mhm.
Okay, you can't because it starts low. Okay, so Soul 5Ks, you can't really Elk, but you can beak it. Let's say Soul does 6p. I know you can do that.
That's interesting. I didn't know about the being able to cancel the JD like that.
Yeah, it's super nice. Yeah, if they 6p, you can get in that way, and then run your game again. So it's an RPS mix that's super risky but super rewarding because you get basically another knockdown to do whatever. And usually I only do it to end games off because that's where I think it thrives the most, because that's when players are like, okay, I really need to play patience. I'm like, okay, you want to play patient? All right, bet. And then I'll start running the mix train. to finish out the game.
Generally when you're like running, you're in a situation where like you have them in the corner and you're ready to like run some of your just like corner pressure and try to keep it for as long as possible, right? What are the
Yeah.
parts that generally you see people like escaping in, mashing out of? Like I know it's a lot of like strike throw, kind of like Geo-esque pressure in a lot of ways.
The main it's basically what I covered earlier. The main places people mash is after my follow-ups, because especially Beak, because I can't really do anything other than block. I can sometimes jump out, but if Nago does 5k, then I can't even jump out. I literally can't do anything. I have to hold it. So he was essentially the hard places. The hard places in your pressure to do anything about is if you do Beak follow-up. Other places people like to jump out is if I do 2S into Beak or 2S into nothing, but then I can anti-air you with JK if you're like melee or May, like I said, or I can JH, I can JS. But normally people will want to run out when I do this because they're not really expecting me to catch them that way. And if you want to get super specific, you can catch pots. Because pots like to do back mega fist to get out of pressure normally. If I do like close slash into hoof, the hoof will beat mega fist. It will catch the startup, and then you can just you can get a combo off of them that way. But usually they'll jump out after any of my follow ups. That isn't elk. But you have ways around that if you know how to use them.
Mm-hmm. And so you should generally kind of watch for the Sin not doing the follow-ups, because if you have to respect the follow-ups because they can all be frame traps, but if they don't hit the follow-up button, that's kind of that's where the Sin is resetting pressure, sort of thing.
Basically. If I do a special into nothing, I'm watching for what you're gonna do. So if you do nothing and then I come up in like 2S or I elk, that's your time to get out. Is you want to watch me watching you.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about the mind games. Because a lot of the time I will lose my turn on doing 2S because I'm like, obviously I'm sitting here, I'm waiting to see what you do, and if you do nothing and you wait for me to approach again, you can catch my run up, you can catch me doing this because of its low recovery, stuff like that. Or it's high recovery, I should say. I keep saying low recovery. Let me see, what is 2S's recovery, by the way? It is 13 frames of recovery. So it's not horrible, but it's not like you can decently catch it if you know how. Like you can do like gunflame if you're soul, you can do like stuff like that. I don't know why you would gunflame, but that's just an example.
Yeah, right.
Anything?
Your
What's up?
supers have like one of your supers has like a clean hit mechanic, right? And that's
That
the
is,
one
yeah.
that's like
That
you
is
use that
this one.
mostly at the end of a string.
Yeah. You
Okay.
only like this super. Actually, I should cover this because a lot of people think that you can use his supers just willy-nilly. Personally, I don't use his supers unless I'm going for in a combo. Because, for example, this one, it's not a reversal, so you can punish me for doing it, especially if I whiff. It does have the clean hit mechanic, which makes it really strong in combos. That also makes damage really weird sometimes because the game-ending combo with Tyrant could either kill or it'll be left at 1 health if you don't get the clean hit. And then as for this one, go ahead. There we go. As for RTL, it is a reversal. However, you can do something like that, or you can just straight up grab it. So if someone's expecting you to wake up super, it can be really bad. That's why I'd rather opt for DP into like 2K 2D or DP into if I can get it. Ah! Like DP into 2K into grab, I fucked it up there, but you know what I mean. Like 2K into grab, just to like. That's why I'd rather opt for those rather than wasting my meter on the super because it's so punishable. And even if you're like in the corner like this and you RTL, you need 100 meter for it to be to wall break from wall to wall, which is not bad. But again, I'd rather just use the meter for higher damaging combos than just raw RTL. and you just have other ways of getting out. For example, something people should do is that you can just, if you DP RC, I'm gone. You know,
Oh.
I'm back full screen. If you're not expecting it, you're not really gonna catch me because it's so fast. And then again, like I showed you, you can DP into 2K into throw or 2K 2D or whatever.
Can they air grab that, or are they in RC stun for too long?
I, from what I can tell, they're RC stunned for too long. I can't really show it against a bot because the bot's not really good at reacting, but I believe they're in RC stun for too long to grab it unless you're like pot. But I don't even think the pot can grab it, to be honest. Speaking of DP, I don't know if I covered this, but especially on block, but even in some combos, you want to RC down because the down hit can be a little weird. The only thing, and if you do end up just letting it fly, you can obviously do the follow up and get a run in or whatever. But it's better to do things like that, or even if you want to corner swap, you can do something like that. It's just a lot better, especially if you're fighting someone like Happy. You want to keep corner and you don't want to break it. People like to do that with RTL, and because you can do that, you can side swap with RTL if they block it. I didn't do it there, but you can do it. But if you're fighting something like Happy or even Pot, and you want to keep the corner, that's where doing down RCDP is really good. Because now you have corner, and you usually will have full bar if you're blocking for long enough. So you can kind of run your game in the corner and then kill them that way.
You just showed one of the doing the like double follow up on DP. I have two questions I think about that. One is like I know you can punish in between the hits of DP, right? And
Yes.
that is always the ideal punish basically, right? Because you're still like -16 or whatever after you do,
Yeah.
even if you do the follow up, but like you should be trying to punish in between the two hits.
Yeah.
And then when you're doing follow-ups like that, I feel like and this might just be like me being dog shit at the game, so don't take my word for it, but I feel like a lot of those follow-ups with the gazelle step are like pretty fake. Like there's a couple of them that give you the like meaty close slash, but a lot of them you just kind of like end up right in front of them and you're like grabbable or counter hittable or whatever.
Yeah. Funny story. All of them but Elcoat follow-up are fake. If I do beak follow-up and then run in and you block it, you can snuff me with a low like 2P, like a fast button. You can snuff me with it because or the gazelle step. Let me see. It has like 24 frames of recovery. So I really can't do anything unless I do the elk follow-up. So you can grab it. Usually if I'm doing it off of beak, I'm going for a grab. So if you're expecting it, you can just easily tech that. It's really easy to react to, or you can just straight up grab me in return if I do it. But on the elk is the only one you can't really punish. But everything else, if I do it and you know it's coming, you can just punish me for it. It's really easy.
Okay.
Can you show the elk follow up one more time? The real one. Got it.
And then, for example, if I do, I get counter hit, and I hit 2P there, which is my fastest button. So
Okay.
you really only want to fight back. Yeah, you really only want to. Even there, I grabbed and then it still punished me. So like, it's not hard to react to unless you don't see it coming. Like if I mix it up, it can be a little annoying because obviously I'll just be sitting from here and all of a sudden I'm in your face and I grabbed you. Then you're like, oh god, But if I do it constantly, it's not hard to react to.
Okay. And then I think another question that's kind of like conceptual, that honestly kind of goes both ways because I struggle with this playing Sin as well. Is there like, so you do the elk hunt follow up, right? And you're +8. Like, is there any like RPS that the opponent should be engaging in at that point, or you just hold whatever button's coming next and wait for something that's like?
If I do the elk follow up and I don't gazelle at you, that's when I'm +8. You can't really do anything. You can try, but I'll probably, because if I do not dash after the elk follow up, I'm gonna 2S, and I'll pretty much catch everything other than DP if I 2S because I'm +8. So
Okay.
really, you just have to hold it unless you have a DP. But even then, it can be a little tricky. So it's better to just hold it, especially because I'm gonna be usually pretty low on stamina if I don't come at you with Gazelle. Like I usually do this if I've already used a bar, so I can kind of save a bar for later to punish you again. So you really just have to hold it. But if I do the follow-up and I come at you, there is a slight chance if I mess up close slash for you to grab me. But again, it's slight, and the risks are if you do miss the grab, I get a full combo and to half your health. So it's really risky to grab the close slash, but it is something you can do.
Mhm.
And also, like I said, I did develop tech to get around that if you do start catching my close slash and grabbing me. Which
What do you?
I
Oh, sorry.
what's
Go
up?
ahead.
No, yeah, go ahead.
What's your like general matchup chart look like? Like, do you got characters that you hate playing and characters that you think are really good matches for Sin?
All right, all the Sins are about to be very confused, but I think Faust is Sin's best matchup, and I think Mei is his worst matchup.
Okay.
Um, Faust, the reason I think Faust is his worst matchup is because on round start, he can't really do anything. If you do 2P, I'll just hoof you. If you do the spinny thingy, I'll just 6P you. If you back up, I'm just going to elk at you. You know, you can't really do anything on round start against me. And a lot of Faust has a similar problem to Sin, where he has a lot of recovery, especially if he's doing items. So if I see you throwing a bunch of items and I'm close enough, I'm just going to elk at you, put you in the corner. If he does like the long, like really long poke that goes into the baseball bat, I can elk under that and get a combo off of you. You know, there's a lot of ways I can play around Faust that's really easy. What makes it somewhat hard for Sin is obviously Faust also has long range, so I have to like dash block to get in. But other than that, you can punish Faust really easy for a lot of things he does, and that's why I think it's the best. People say Gold Lewis is his best, which makes sense, but I personally think it's Faust. And then May. You know, May is dumb. May is just dumb. You can't really do anything about Dolphin. You can 6P, but it's really risky. You know, May can easily abuse Sin because he doesn't really have anything too fast other than 2P. And 2P, even though it's really good, it can be really weird. So it's really hard for Sin to do anything against May, in my opinion. I used to think it was Milia, but since I've been fighting so many Milias recently to learn the matchup, I do not think that anymore. However, I do think Milia is still pretty bad. Over Chip, in my opinion. That's generally how matchups go. Other than that, his matchups are either slightly bad, pretty bad, or even. He doesn't really have a matchup he excels in. Even Faust, even though I think it's Faust is the best, all his matchups at most are even.
Testament matchup not too bad, but it's mostly a psychological thing because Testament players all mash.
Basically.
Speaking of like round start, like what are your go-tos for round start? Because I feel like I've always really struggled because most Sins that I play against just do nothing at round start, and it's obnoxious because I want to interact with people.
That is Sin's round start. The only okay, so that is really Sin's round start. Unless you're like Faust or Gold Lewis, round starts usually involve 6P, Huff, or IAD back into Beak or Elk. But the most common one that I do, especially like game one, is I'll just walk back, wait to see what you do round start, and punish you with 2S just to get in early. But then usually after game one or game two, and I start to pick up on what round starts you do, I'll respond accordingly. Unless it's the specific matchups like Faust or Gold Lewis, where I can just 6P or Huff or whatever. Um, I think I talked about this when we went over the Nago replay, but if Nago is doing like 2S, you can hoof that as well. If Nago does the Beyblade, the Fukio back Beyblade, you can actually beak it if you time it correctly. You can also 2S it if you time it correctly. It's just a little harder. But that's why I don't really go for Beak unless it's the Nago or the Gold Lewis matchup because you can catch Beyblade with Beak pretty easy. And it can be difficult for him to contest it if he's not 6Ping it. Oh, and it is also good in the Bridget matchup as well. If they're yo-yoing at you, Like I said, you can do run up 5 feet, or you can beak to catch yo-yo cancel in the JH. But other than that, round starts are usually just do nothing
Mhm.
unless it's very specific matchup. Or anything else? I am down to answer matchup specific questions because I know all of them, but Bray and Bridget and May.
Very very quick. You said that against Faust round start, Hoof beats like Faust usually goes for like 2p.
Yep.
So Hoof totally beats that.
Yep. Yeah.
All right.
No matter when I do it, Hoof will beat 2P every time.
That's not bad. That's some privilege.
I guess some character specific question I have is like, so a lot of the defensive options people have against Leo backturn and stuff is like FD into backdash, but with Sin, do you have many backdash options to like get out of Leo pressure?
No.
Or okay.
Because of how weird Sin's backdash is, how slow it is, it doesn't have that much invul. I can't really backdash out of anybody. That's why Gold Lewis can be tricky because I can't backdash Gold Lewis either. But and like people do say that Leo smokes Sin, but I think Sin has a way of working around Leo, like especially if you know the Leo matchup well. But for the most part, if you're pressuring me, I can't like backdash out of it or nothing. I have to fish for your gaps.
You just like use DP a lot, basically. And
Yeah, either DP or like if you like to like dash up at me, I can 2S or I can even 2K if you're closer, you know. Anything else?
In the like Sin Testament matchup, like it feels like it's very neutral dependent overall, and like it, Sin obviously, like in melee, Sin kind of does the frame trap thing the Testament players hate. Is there anything in particular that like you try to go for in those more like zoner kind of matchups? You could play it for like Axel or High Blood Nago too, I suppose.
It's a bad habit, but I mainly kind of look for the things I can jump in on
Mm-hmm.
in zoner matchups. But for test specifically, not as much because of my long range with like Beak and Elk. If you are like Grave Reapering me a lot and I space it correctly, I can Beak over your Grave Reaper and then counter hit you for Grave Reapering and stuff like that. So the test matchup as a zoner is a bit different for Sin, but for the most part, I'll be dash blocking and then looking for a way to get in.
Okay.
Or anything else?
I have my tried and true question. Why Sin?
Because four reasons. One, Ram is boring in this game. She doesn't play like X-Ray Ram, so I'm not playing her. Dizzy's not in the game, and me like Himbo because me also Himbo, and also Sin is just really fun.
all great
Great.
reasons.
Great reasons.
Sin
Also,
is
like
cool
that combo I
smile.
showed you. It's so true. But yeah, he just has sick combos, good damage. He's like, I don't know. Like I normally don't like rushdown characters, but just something about like playing the waiting game on Zen just feels fun to me.
Use boy with flag, he'll knock you out.
Exactly. I don't know. I don't know what it is about me with blonde boys and sticks, but I always seem to like those kind of characters.
Very cool. If
Those are all
okay,
my
here's
questions.
here's my hot take question for us to
Okay.
potentially wrap up on, because I don't know if anybody else has anything. The Sin buffs are hopefully coming, right? But like, what would you actually want buffed on him?
Okay. I'm gonna start with the funny ones first. I want JD to be better. JD is fine how it is, in my opinion, but I want it to be better because JD combos are cool. Doing JD setups are cool. I want to be able to do funny JD setups, even though I know it might be slightly broken if I can. but I want it so bad because I love this move. It's just not good. But other than that, the buffs I think he actually needs are just recovery, and like maybe a few like frame on block adjustments. Oh, and I think hoof should not be -8. I think it should be like I think it should still be minus because that's fair, but not -8. Definitely not -8. That's too much in my opinion. And even on block, the follow up is also -8. I think that should
Yep.
also not be true. But other than that, he needs just recovery changes. He needs maybe a little bit, maybe to be a little bit faster. Like it would be nice if Beak was a little faster and recovered more, because Beak has 22 frames of recovery, and it's like 14 startup. So it's not the greatest thing in the world, despite it having so many uses. So I would like to see that changed. But other than that, yeah, that's kind of what I'm hoping for, is just a little bit less recovery, because that's really what catches me the most is the recovery.
Yeah. I think in part because of that recovery, like honestly, my biggest takeaway from how to beat Sin is to just play a character with a DP. Because either everything is a true block string or there's enough of a gap for you to DP and ruin everything all the time. Because everything is just frame traps.
Yeah. I think that's why people have Chip as his worst matchup. Because he's a fast character that can whiff punish all of my garbage recovery with a DP, so I can't even do block strings on him half the time, which makes sense. But I think you can play around that kind of well if you know what you're doing, you know. That's also probably why I struggle with Soul a lot, because I cannot really I'm not good at handling his corner pressure mainly. I can usually do fine in neutral. It's when he puts me in the corner is when I'm like, help. But and like even then, you know, he has a DP, so if I'm hoofing a lot and they start DPing me, it can be hard to keep him down. But yeah.
Cool.
I will say one final note for the video. I probably did not cover everything I wanted to because, like I said, I'm kind of small brain sometimes. So I am always down to answer more questions in like DM or something if anybody does have questions that I may have not covered in this video.
Nice.
Shout outs to Pixelated Max, to your soon to be #1 Sin player, and also probably the #1 Sin jump dust enjoyer.
So true, so true.
At the very least, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's for sure. Because nobody does it but me, and I hope to keep it that way. But if somebody steals it from the thing, that's fine. But like, it's mine. Just remember that.
Well, thanks a lot. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Good stuff.